I'm Isaiah Huffman.
And I'm Jacob Nicely.
And this is our
2023 FFA log splitter. As of December 3rd, I think the log splitter project is coming along pretty well, if you would ask me. I mean, we have basically most of the main structural supports and the main part of it done. On a rough scale, we've invested 6 or 7 hours after school on weekends just to get it as far as we have currently. I believe so far we have $995 invested in it currently, and that'd just be prices like this steel technically we got for free, but if we would just roughly estimate how much it would be, that'd be added to our budget.
Our original idea for the log splitter was I had a blueprint for a wooden-based log splitter for budget-cutting costs. Soon I realized that log splitters aren't made out of wood. So we moved to steel, more expensive route, but it was to get it done right and get it done how it's supposed to be getting done. I had brainstormed some separate ideas for I-beams, since I-beams are expensive. And about 50 or so years ago, my great-grandfather had built a garage with a base of railroad beams back when it was still legal to use them and buy them. So we had about 30 or 40 50-foot long railroad beams alongside our garage have been buried underground for 45, 50 years. That was our original plan, was to use the railroad beams as our I-beam for the log splitter. Every single piece of steel that we have on this log splitter came from our farm, sitting in a garage shop. It's been touched for 40 years, so we're pulling it out. We're going to use it for something. We ended up finding an I-beam that was 9 foot long, so we ended up using that instead of the railroad tie, which is a bummer, but it makes it a whole lot easier at the end of the day. We don't have to cut that in this thick, heavy cast. We originally had planned to make it here at LCCTC, but we decided to move back at home in Nicely's garage. He has a lot of tools and welders and all the equipment we would need, heated garage, light, Wi-Fi for videoing, of course. His garage was just overall the better idea to do this in.
We had square tubing, and we decided to make a 1x4 framing out of it, having those pieces so we can mount that to the underside of the I-beam. That way we have a nice, strong, rigid support for a motor and tank reservoir, and that way we could also mount the axle. The axle that we have mounted to our log splitter currently is an axle that we pulled from my uncle's junkyard, and we welded a piece of square stock to the top of it, and we welded it to the frame. That way it's nice, strong, rigid, and we don't have to worry about supports coming down on either side in a triangle to support it. It sits right at the correct height that we want it to, so we didn't have to mess around with it too much. The wheels that we have for the log splitter came off of a 1949 Jeep CJ2A, which is a civilian style Jeep from World War II. It was the first production of the civilian style that we had to drill new lugs in for our axle because our axle was a bigger lug pattern than those wheels originally were. So for our splitting edge, we decided to sharpen a flat piece of metal, 1/4 inch thick, that is roughly 8 inches high, and we decided to weld angle iron on each side, so whenever the log splits, it opens up more and it's less work for us to pull it apart. And mounting it to the log splitter, we decided to weld little pieces of angle iron on the bottom side. That way it's a little bit stronger and we don't have to worry about the welds breaking. And on the back side of the splitting edge, we welded a piece of angle iron. That way it doesn't try and fold backwards and we have support for how tall it is. The hydraulic cylinder we mounted with a piece of rod to hold the front part of it down. That way it won't come up when it's put under pressure. And for the back side, we have a 1-inch bolt that will run through the back of it, and we have 2 plates holding it cut in a triangle. That way it will prevent it from sliding backwards whenever pressure has applied to it. So on the front of the cylinder, we had a little piece of square tubing that was 3 inches long, and we cut that down, made all the edges square, and then we welded a flat piece of steel to the front of it. We welded a little triangle from the top of the square to the plate. That way it's strong, and we drilled a 1-inch hole through it and bolted it together. For mounting the motor, we have extra square tubing that we are going to drill holes into the space of the motor mount. That way we can pick up the motor so the shaft is up above the top of the I-beam, so we can mount our hydraulic pump to the motor without having to worry about space, and so it's up out of the way and easy to maintenance. For our hydraulic tank, we decided to find an old metal gas can, about 5 gallons, and we decided to drill a hole and 2 holes in the top of the tank, put adapters in and weld them on. That way we have a return for our tank and a vent. And on the back side of the tank, there's a threaded port already built into it, and we just bought a pipe fitting that would fit that, so our hose from the tank could go to our pump, and then from the pump there'd be a hose going into the DCV valve, and then there'd be a return line from the DCV valve into the tank, and the DCV valve had a hydraulic line going to the cylinder, and there was a return line from the DCV valve to the cylinder to retract the piston that came out of the cylinder. We had an inline filter from the return line from the DCV valve to our tank, and the filter is only rated for 40 psi, and our pump is pushing 22 psi, or 22,000 psi. So when we first started up the motor and had the pump running and opened the valve, our O-ring for the bowl of the inline filter failed, and it caused hydraulic fluid to go everywhere.
For painting the log splitter, we hand brushed the frame and axle, and then everything else was just sprayed in International Harvester Red. Same with the cylinder, the tank, and the wheels.
On the front of our I-beam for our log splitter, we have a piece of square stock that we cut 2 notches in, and we folded the tabs out, cut those off. Then for the top, we drilled a 1-inch hole all the way through. That way we can hook it up to a drawbar on a tractor or a hitch receiver, one of the two, so that way you can haul it around your property or on the road if you're just going about 50 feet